When most people think of sweet potatoes, they think of comfort food, something soft, warm, and sweet, served at family dinners, topped with marshmallows or butter, often forgotten the rest of the year. But under that humble orange skin is something far more powerful than people realize. Sweet potatoes are a nutritional anomaly, one of those rare whole foods that combines high antioxidant content, complex carbohydrates, and therapeutic phytochemicals in a form your body knows exactly how to use. The real secret, though, is that they do something modern medicine still struggles to do: reduce chronic inflammation from the inside out. Now, inflammation isn't just about sore joints or a stiff neck. Chronic, low-grade inflammation is a silent, persistent fire that quietly damages the body every single day. It eats away at joint cartilage, irritates blood vessels, disrupts brain signaling, and weakens the immune system. It doesn't hurt until it's too late, when it's already eroded your energy, your clarity, and your resilience. And what we now understand through dozens of longitudinal studies is that food can either fuel this fire or extinguish it. That's where sweet potatoes come in, if you eat them the right way. Most people consume sweet potatoes as a starchy side dish, often doused in sugary toppings or oils that oxidize under high heat. That version won't heal anything. But when you slow cook or steam sweet potatoes and eat them with their skins intact, you unlock a completely different effect. The skins contain high levels of chlorogenic acid and quercetin, two polyphenols with profound anti-inflammatory properties. These compounds inhibit COX enzymes, which are the same targets pharmaceutical NSAIDs go after. But instead of blunting symptoms temporarily like a pill, sweet potatoes reduce the inflammatory load over time. Now, the flesh of the sweet potato is rich in beta-carotene, which the body converts into vitamin A, a critical nutrient for immune function, vision, and skin integrity. But beyond that, beta-carotene serves as a scavenger of free radicals, unstable molecules that trigger inflammatory signaling across tissues. And unlike supplements where dosage and absorption vary wildly, the beta-carotene in whole sweet potatoes comes with fiber and micronutrients that actually help shuttle it into your cells in a usable form. And here's something even more intriguing. Anthocyanins, the pigments responsible for the purple and red hues in certain sweet potato varieties, have been shown to modulate the NLRP3 inflammasome. This is a critical protein complex involved in immune activation and inflammation. When this pathway becomes overactive, which it does in people with metabolic syndrome, obesity, and neurodegenerative diseases, it contributes to tissue breakdown and immune dysfunction. But when you introduce anthocyanins through diet, specifically in the context of whole food matrices like sweet potatoes, you're not just masking inflammation, you're changing how your immune system behaves. You're lowering the volume on inflammatory genes. The key here is consistency and preparation. If you're baking sweet potatoes at high heat, slathering them in butter, frying them, or eating them with refined carbs, you're essentially neutralizing their therapeutic value. But if you prepare them gently, steamed, cooled, or lightly roasted, and combine them with a source of omega-3 fats like flaxseed or fatty fish, you enhance their absorption and magnify their impact. This combination not only improves the bioavailability of the antioxidants, but also sends a hormonal signal to the body to reduce cytokine activity. That means less TNF-alpha, less IL-6, less CRP, all markers that correlate strongly with chronic pain, cardiovascular issues, and even mood disorders. What's really powerful is what happens over time. When people switch to a diet rich in these kinds of anti-inflammatory whole foods, sweet potatoes being a cornerstone, their markers shift. Blood pressure starts to drop, fasting insulin improves, C-reactive protein levels come down, and people report better sleep, less brain fog, more stamina. It's not just about avoiding disease, it's about creating a state of health where the body isn't constantly defending itself. And this matters because most of the 12 hidden health problems people experience, joint pain, brain fog, fatigue, stubborn weight, hormonal imbalances, even skin flare-ups, are downstream effects of chronic inflammation. You can't treat them one by one with medications. You have to address the root cause, and that begins at the molecular level with what you eat. Sweet potatoes, when eaten the right way, don't just fill you up. They signal safety to your cells. They calm the immune system. They lower systemic stress. That's not a carb. That's cellular communication. When you realize food isn't just fuel, but information, something that instructs your biology, everything changes. So the next time you reach for a quick meal, ask yourself, am I feeding the fire or am I putting it out? Because every bite counts. Most people are shocked when they hear this, but one of the most powerful tools for healing the gut isn't a supplement, a cleanse, or a probiotic. It's resistant starch. And sweet potatoes, when prepared the right way, can become one of the most effective natural sources of it. But here's the key. The way you cook and cool them makes all the difference between a gut-healing food and just another starchy side dish. When you eat sweet potatoes hot and fresh out of the oven, they behave like any other carbohydrate, quickly digested, rapidly absorbed, and converted into glucose. But when you allow them to cool after cooking, something extraordinary happens. The starches undergo a transformation known as retrogradation. This is where the magic begins. Retrograded starch resists digestion in the small intestine. Instead of being broken down and absorbed like simple sugar, it travels intact to the large intestine, where it becomes food for your microbiome. And the bacteria that live there, especially beneficial strains like bifidobacteria and Akkermansia, thrive on this kind of fuel. They ferment resistant starch and produce short-chain fatty acids, most notably butyrate. Butyrate is the gold standard for gut health. It reduces intestinal inflammation, supports the integrity of the gut lining, and even enhances insulin sensitivity. What's more, it plays a vital role in calming overactive immune responses. This is why resistant starch has been studied not just for digestive issues, but for autoimmune conditions, mood disorders, and even metabolic disease. But it's not just about adding resistant starch. It's about creating an internal environment that heals. And that begins with consistency. If you prepare sweet potatoes, cook them thoroughly, preferably by steaming or boiling, then cool them in the fridge for 12 to 24 hours, you dramatically increase their resistant starch content. When you eat them cold or gently reheated at low temperature, they become a slow-burning, gut-supportive fuel source. This shift alone can help restore microbial balance, especially in people suffering from bloating, irregular bowel movements, or dysbiosis. It may sound simple, but this one habit, cooling your cooked sweet potatoes, can set off a chain reaction in the body that impacts everything from mood to immunity. It's also important to recognize how much of the modern gut dysfunction epidemic is driven by fiber deficiency. The average Western diet is sorely lacking in fermentable fiber. We've created eating patterns that starve our good bacteria while feeding opportunistic strains that thrive on sugar and processed oils. Over time, that imbalance can damage the protective mucosal layer of the gut, leading to increased intestinal permeability, what we commonly refer to as leaky gut. That condition doesn't just affect digestion. It drives systemic inflammation, immune dysfunction, skin problems, brain fog, and fatigue. But when you introduce resistant starch consistently, you not only support beneficial microbes, you also help repair that mucosal barrier. What's especially fascinating is that studies on resistant starch and gut health show benefits within just a few weeks. People report improved digestion, fewer cravings, more stable energy levels, and even better sleep. And sweet potatoes offer a unique advantage. They're nutrient dense. While many resistant starch sources are refined or stripped of micronutrients, sweet potatoes come loaded with potassium, manganese, and vitamin C. So you're not just feeding the gut, you're nourishing the whole system. And when your microbiome is balanced and supported, the ripple effects extend far beyond digestion. We also need to talk about how gut health connects to brain function. There's a constant bidirectional communication pathway between the gut and the brain, the gut-brain axis. When the microbiome is healthy and producing adequate levels of short-chain fatty acids, it actually enhances neuroplasticity, supports neurotransmitter synthesis, and reduces systemic stress. In simple terms, when your gut is calm, your mind is clearer, more focused, and more emotionally resilient. This is why people often feel mentally lighter and more emotionally balanced when they fix their digestion. Now, imagine a simple protocol where sweet potatoes, eaten cooled with their skins on, become a daily habit. It's not expensive. It doesn't require a supplement stack. But what it does is deliver consistent, measurable signals of healing to your gut and, by extension, to your brain, your hormones, and your immune system. That's how powerful this route is when you use it wisely. The bottom line is this: every meal is an opportunity to reshape your internal terrain. You're not just feeding hunger, you're feeding an ecosystem. And when that ecosystem thrives, everything else in the body begins to align. It's not about perfection. It's about understanding the science of how your body responds to food and then choosing to act on it one simple step at a time. Most people have been taught to look at food in terms of calories or carbs, especially when it comes to things like sweet potatoes. The idea is often simple. If it's starchy, it must spike your blood sugar. And if it spikes your blood sugar, it's bad. But this black and white thinking completely misses the nuance of how the body actually responds to food. Because blood sugar isn't just about what you eat. It's about how and when you eat it. And when food comparisons are exponential, because of one simple step and some looks, your body actually responds to the food and what you combine it with. And that's where sweet potatoes become surprisingly effective, not only as a source of nutrients, but as a blood sugar stabilizer when used strategically. Sweet potatoes are rich in complex carbohydrates. They do contain natural sugars, yes, but they're also packed with fiber, which slows digestion. On their own, they already have a lower glycemic impact than most people realize. But here's where it gets interesting. If you eat them the right way, timed properly with your body's insulin sensitivity cycle and paired with specific macronutrients, you can blunt the glucose response even further. You can turn what seems like a carb-heavy food into a tool for metabolic regulation. That's not theory. That's based on direct glucose monitoring studies done over the last 5 years, showing how food sequencing and nutrient pairing dramatically influence your body's insulin response. The biggest mistake most people make is eating sweet potatoes alone, or even worse, eating them first in a meal, especially during periods of low insulin sensitivity, late at night, or in the middle of a stress spike. In that state, the body treats the glucose more aggressively, insulin rises sharply, fat storage switches on, and energy crashes follow soon after. But when you shift that meal to a time when your body is primed for nutrient uptake, typically post-exercise or in the early part of the day, and you combine those sweet potatoes with healthy fats and protein, the insulin curve flattens. That's not speculation, it's measurable. Let's take one scenario. Imagine you train in the morning. Your muscles are insulin sensitive for hours afterward. This is the window when your body is most ready to handle glucose. If you eat a serving of cooled sweet potatoes post-workout with something like wild-caught salmon, avocado, or eggs, you create a completely different metabolic response than if you'd eaten those sweet potatoes at night with nothing but salt and oil. Instead of being stored as fat, the glucose is quickly shuttled into your muscle cells to replenish glycogen. You feel steady, you recover faster, you reduce cravings later in the day. This is the blood sugar trick most people don't know exists. Because it's not about restriction, it's about optimization. And even outside of a training context, the way you structure your meals changes everything. If you begin your meal with fiber-rich vegetables followed by protein and fats and save your sweet potatoes for last, you minimize the insulin spike dramatically. This order of eating, what's often called nutrient sequencing, and slows the breakdown of starch into glucose. That's not just helpful for people with insulin resistance or prediabetes. It's critical for anyone who wants sustained energy, less mood volatility, and a lower risk of fat gain. Now let's talk about pairings. Sweet potatoes combined with fats like olive oil, ghee, tahini, or nut butter not only taste better, but also change the rate of digestion. Fats delay gastric emptying, giving the digestive system more time to process glucose. The result? A flatter glucose curve. No spike, no crash, no stress response. And when you add in protein like grass-fed meats, legumes, or even collagen, you further enhance insulin sensitivity, reduce post-meal inflammation, and improve nutrient absorption. These are not minor details. These are levers that control how your body ages, stores energy, and feels day to day. Most people are living in a state of fluctuating blood sugar, bouncing between highs and lows without realizing it. That roller coaster creates fatigue, anxiety, food cravings, poor sleep, and eventually weight gain and insulin resistance. The problem isn't always the food, it's the timing and context. Sweet potatoes don't need to be feared or eliminated, they need to be used correctly. They can actually become one of your most reliable tools for maintaining glycemic control, reducing the stress response, and giving your body consistent, clean energy, but only if you understand how they work in the bigger metabolic picture. When you shift your thinking away from fear-based nutrition, avoiding carbs at all costs, and instead move toward informed, strategic nutrition, you start to work with your body, not against it. You respect its rhythms. You time your fuel. You learn to balance. That's what real metabolic health looks like, not restriction, not over control, but understanding. And that understanding gives you freedom. Because when you get your blood sugar right, everything else in your life works better. From your focus and your sleep, to your weight, your mood, and your hormones. It's not about eating less. It's about eating smart. We often think of brain health as something separate from diet, like it's mostly about puzzles, meditation, or maybe the occasional supplement. But the truth is, your brain is constantly being shaped and remodeled by what you eat. The neurons that help you focus, store memories, and regulate mood are directly influenced by the compounds you feed them every day. And here's where sweet potatoes come in, particularly purple and Japanese varieties. These aren't just nutrient dense, they're neuroprotective. But, as with most powerful foods, how you prepare them matters just as much as whether you eat them at all. The compounds that give purple and orange sweet potatoes their vibrant colors aren't just pretty pigments, they're biologically active antioxidants. Specifically, anthocyanins and beta-carotene. These compounds act like shields inside the brain, protecting neurons from oxidative damage, which is a major driver of cognitive decline. Every time your brain burns fuel, it produces byproducts, free radicals. Normally, your body handles them, but when those byproducts build up, especially under stress, lack of sleep, or chronic inflammation, they begin to degrade neuronal function. This is when memory slips, focus drifts, and over time, diseases like Alzheimer's start to take root. What's remarkable is that the antioxidants in sweet potatoes don't just scavenge free radicals passively. They actually modulate key brain pathways involved in aging and repair. For example, anthocyanins have been shown to inhibit neuroinflammation by downregulating NF-κB signaling molecule that, when overactive, contributes to brain fog, depression, and even the early stages of neurodegeneration. And beta-carotene, a precursor to vitamin A, plays a critical role in maintaining the integrity of the blood-brain barrier. That's the tight network of cells that protects your brain from toxins and pathogens. When the blood-brain barrier is compromised, everything from mood instability to long-term cognitive decline becomes more likely. But here's what most people don't realize. Cooking method can either enhance or destroy these benefits. When you fry or char sweet potatoes at high temperatures, you oxidize their polyphenols and degrade the very compounds that support your brain. But if you steam them or roast them gently at low heat, you preserve their antioxidant capacity. And when you allow them to cool after cooking, as we discussed earlier, you actually increase their resistant starch, which has a secondary benefit on brain function by improving gut health. That connection between gut and brain is not some abstract theory. It's well documented now that short-chain fatty acids produced in the gut, especially butyrate, enhance neuroplasticity and reduce neuroinflammation. So when you eat sweet potatoes in a way that protects both their brain compounds and their fiber structure, you're working with your body on multiple levels at once. Another overlooked aspect is glucose delivery. Your brain consumes about 20% of your body's total energy, mostly in the form of glucose. That's a huge demand, and yet the brain hates volatility. It needs a slow, steady stream of fuel to maintain peak function. What sweet potatoes provide, especially when eaten with healthy fats and fiber, is a stable release of glucose that nourishes the brain without causing spikes or crashes. This steadiness matters. When your blood sugar fluctuates rapidly, so does your mental clarity. You get the classic mid-afternoon crash, foggy thinking, low motivation, irritability. But when you provide your brain with sustained energy, it responds with better focus, quicker recall, and improved emotional regulation. And there's something else. These compounds in sweet potatoes don't just preserve brain health, they promote regeneration. Anthocyanins have been shown in animal models to enhance the production of brain-deserted neurotrophic factor, or BDNF. This is a molecule your brain uses to grow new neurons and strengthen existing ones. Think of BDNF as fertilizer for your brain. Low levels are linked with depression, anxiety, and impaired cognition. High levels are associated with better learning, better mood, and better resilience. By incorporating foods that boost BDNF, especially those rich in anthocyanins, you're essentially supporting your brain's ability to adapt, grow, and stay sharp as you age. And the simplicity of this can't be overstated. We're not talking about exotic supplements or expensive nootropics. We're talking about a root vegetable that's been cultivated for centuries, prepared thoughtfully, paired with fats or herbs that enhance absorption, and eaten consistently. A few servings a week can make a measurable difference over time, not just in how you feel in the moment, but in how your brain ages and performs long term. This is about protecting the organ that defines who you are, how you think, how you connect, and how you create. So when you look at a sweet potato, don't just see starch. See neural protection. See the kind of long-term investment that doesn't show up overnight, but compounds over time in clearer thinking, better decision-making, and sharper memory. Because the food you eat either erodes your brain or preserves it. And that choice starts with what's on your plate. One of the most overlooked aspects of health is the body's ability to detox, not just once in a while, but daily, quietly, in the background. Most people only think about detox in extreme ways, like juice cleanses, fasting, or expensive supplements. But the truth is, your liver, kidneys, skin, and lymphatic system are always working to clear waste, neutralize toxins, and rebalance your hormones. The problem is, in today's environment, the burden on those systems is much higher than ever before. Between microplastics, heavy metals, endocrine disruptors, and the constant flood of processed foods, your natural detox pathways can get overwhelmed. And when they do, symptoms start to show up: brain fog, hormonal imbalance, skin breakouts, chronic fatigue, even anxiety. The solution isn't extreme, it's consistency. And surprisingly, sweet potatoes, when eaten correctly, can be a foundational part of that solution. Sweet potatoes support detoxification in a few different ways, but the most important one is through their fiber content, particularly when consumed with the skin. That skin isn't just roughage, it's a powerful binder. It helps trap toxins that the liver has already broken down and sends them out of the body through the digestive tract. Without that final step, those toxins can get reabsorbed into the bloodstream, and the cycle continues. That's a key reason why fiber-rich foods like sweet potatoes are essential for supporting phase 3 detox, the actual elimination part. You can upregulate liver enzymes all you want, but if you're not binding and removing the waste, you're just recirculating the problem. But it goes deeper than that. Sweet potatoes also contain compounds that support phase 2 liver detoxification. This is the critical process where your liver takes reactive intermediates, molecules that are often more harmful than the original toxins, and conjugates them into safe, water-soluble compounds the body can excrete. For this phase to run efficiently, your body needs sulfur-containing amino acids, antioxidants, and key phytonutrients. Sweet potatoes bring some of those to the table directly, but more importantly, they create the right metabolic environment for phase 2 enzymes to work, especially when combined with herbs like cilantro, turmeric, or ginger, which can synergistically support the process. One area where this becomes particularly relevant is in the detoxification of excess estrogens. Estrogen dominance is a common issue today, not just in women, but in men too, driven by exposure to plastics, pesticides, and even skincare products. When your body can't effectively clear used estrogens, they get reabsorbed and start to interfere with hormonal balance. This can lead to stubborn fat around the midsection, fatigue, irritability, and more serious issues like fibroids or infertility. Sweet potatoes can support the elimination of these excess estrogens by binding them in the gut, lowering the chance of reabsorption and promoting regular bowel movements. But again, it all comes down to preparation. Eating sweet potatoes fried in processed oils or paired with sugary toppings cancels out many of these benefits. What you want is a gentle, supportive preparation, steamed or baked with the skins on, possibly combined with herbs that stimulate bile flow. Bile is one of the most underrated components of detox. It acts like a garbage truck, carrying toxins from the liver to the intestines. If bile isn't flowing, detox isn't happening efficiently. And compounds in sweet potatoes, like choline and resistant starch, help stimulate that bile production and movement. And then there's the gut-liver axis. Everything your digestive system fails to clear ends up burdening your liver. If your gut is inflamed or imbalanced, it leaks endotoxins, bacterial fragments, into the bloodstream, where they make their way back to the liver. This phenomenon, known as endotoxemia, increases liver inflammation and slows detox pathways. But when you eat foods that nourish the gut lining, support healthy bacteria, and encourage peristalsis, you reduce that load. Sweet potatoes, especially when cooled after cooking to boost their resistant starch, do exactly that. They support beneficial bacteria, reduce gut permeability, and ease the inflammatory burden on the liver. There's something elegant about how this all works. You're not forcing the body into detox with extremes. You're supporting the system it already has. Layer by layer. A cooled sweet potato with skin, paired with leafy greens, turmeric, and olive oil, becomes more than a meal. It becomes a detox supporting signal to the body. And when you send that signal consistently, the body responds with clarity, balance, and resilience. This isn't about quick fixes. It's about steady, intelligent support. The way you eat can either clog your system or clear it. And when you understand that detox isn't a crash, it's a rhythm, you begin to realize that small changes in how you prepare your food can make all the difference. And this works by changing your diet from fee to budget and time, and by tracking your blood-bone for a week more efficiently and understand because your body knows how to heal. You just have to give it what it needs and then get out of the way. If there's one mineral that quietly influences nearly every major system in your body and yet is chronically underconsumed, it's magnesium. And it's not just about muscle cramps or restless legs at night. Magnesium is involved in over 300 enzymatic reactions in the body. It regulates nerve function, muscle contraction, blood pressure, bone density, sleep cycles, and even your heart rhythm. Yet despite its importance, most people are walking around in a state of low-level deficiency without knowing it. And that deficiency shows up in ways that are easy to overlook. Fatigue, anxiety, irritability, muscle stiffness, tension headaches, poor recovery, and even sugar cravings. The good news is the solution doesn't have to be complicated. In fact, something as simple and natural as a properly prepared sweet potato can play a part in restoring that mineral balance if you understand how to use it. Sweet potatoes, especially those grown in mineral-rich soil, are a surprising source of dietary magnesium. They don't top the charts like spinach or pumpkin seeds, but they offer something just as important: bioavailability. The form of magnesium found in whole foods like sweet potatoes is bound to organic acids and fibers that make it easier for your body to absorb and retain. Unlike some synthetic supplements that pass through without being effectively utilized, when you combine sweet potatoes with other supportive ingredients like leafy greens, healthy fats, and vitamin B6-rich foods, you create the conditions for that magnesium to be absorbed into your cells and used where it's needed most. What a lot of people don't realize is that modern agriculture has quietly depleted the magnesium content of our food. Decades of aggressive farming practices have stripped the soil of vital minerals. That means even foods that were once naturally rich in magnesium, like grains, vegetables, and legumes, don't contain the same levels they used to. Sweet potatoes, however, tend to be grown in more diverse, nutrient-retaining soils, particularly in smaller farms or traditional growing regions. And unlike grains that require heavy processing, sweet potatoes are consumed close to their natural state, so their mineral content stays largely intact, especially when you eat them with the skin. Now, magnesium isn't just about relaxation or muscle recovery. It plays a central role in mitochondrial health. Mitochondria, your cellular power plants, require magnesium to produce ATP, the energy currency of your body. Without enough magnesium, ATP production drops, and the result is a kind of cellular sluggishness. You may feel this as low energy, brain fog, or a general sense of burnout. By restoring your magnesium levels through whole foods like sweet potatoes, you're literally recharging your body at a cellular level. And here's another layer that makes magnesium so important. It helps regulate your nervous system by balancing calcium. Calcium is excitatory. It triggers muscle contraction and nerve firing. But without enough magnesium to counterbalance it, you end up in a state of tension. Your muscles stay tight. Your nervous system stays wired. Your heart rate stays elevated. This is one of the reasons people with low magnesium tend to feel anxious, overstimulated, or struggle with sleep. Sweet potatoes help not just by supplying magnesium, but by supporting blood sugar stability as well, which further calms the nervous system and reduces cortisol spikes. The way you prepare sweet potatoes also affects how much of their magnesium you retain. Boiling them can lead to some mineral loss into the cooking water, especially if you discard the water. Steaming or baking them with the skin on helps preserve their mineral content. And when you allow them to cool after cooking, you again increase their resistant starch, which feeds gut bacteria that are known to support mineral absorption and retention. So it's not just what's in the sweet potato, it's how your body is prepared to use it that determines the outcome. Magnesium also plays a key role in detoxification, especially in the elimination of heavy metals. It supports glutathione production, the body's master antioxidant, and helps neutralize oxidative stress. When you combine this with the other detox supportive features of sweet potatoes, their fiber, antioxidants, and impact on gut health, you create a synergistic effect. You're not just taking in a single nutrient, you're supporting the entire system that makes that nutrient effective. There's also a deeper reason to pay attention to magnesium-rich foods. As we age, our magnesium needs increase, but our ability to absorb it decreases, especially under stress, which depletes magnesium rapidly. So the older you get, or the more stress you carry, the more important it becomes to ensure your diet includes steady sources of this mineral. Relying solely on supplements often misses the mark because they don't come with the cofactors that whole foods provide. Sweet potatoes offer a unique balance: magnesium, potassium, complex carbs, antioxidants, and prebiotic fiber, all in a single, affordable, accessible food. When you start to see food through this lens, when you realize that what's on your plate is shaping your cellular resilience, your stress tolerance, your energy, it changes how you eat. Because the goal isn't just to feel better for a few hours. The goal is to nourish your body in a way that makes you more adaptable, more stable, and more aligned over time. And sometimes that starts with something as simple as a sweet potato.